Danny's not here today, which is a real shame. I'll just put that in. I'll put my wings on. Because you might remember last meeting, or good afternoon, esteemed gardeners, you might remember last meeting we had an Easter bonnet parade, and I had a basket with flowers on my head, and Danny, he was probably right, but I wouldn't give him the satisfaction, he said, "You're a basket case." So I was going to say, well, Danny, today, for 10 minutes, you can call me Madam Butterfly. Butterflies have been around a long time. Scientists found butterfly fossils that were 50 million years old. And before the continents separated, Africa, Asia, Australia, butterflies travelled across that large landmass. And then when those three land masses separated, they realised that they were there before they separated because they all have similarities. They're related. Whereas the butterflies in South America are a lot older. They're probably about 140 million years old. They do have some similarities, but there are a lot of other differences from the later butterflies. And butterflies actually, and moths, are closely related. Butterflies actually came from one arm of the moth species, and they're quite different. They're not very different, but some of the differences are between moths and butterflies. That butterflies usually feed and travel during the day. There is one butterfly that will sort of fly until early evening, whereas moths will fly and feed at night. And that's probably why butterflies are so brilliantly coloured, and they use their colours to warn other predators away and to recognise each other, whereas moths are dull. They have dull colours because at night, who's going to see them anyway? And butterflies, their antenna is thin with a little club on the end, whereas the moth, it's thin all the way and it's quite furry. So they're differences in their antenna. And my son set this up for me because I'm useless with technology, and little did I realise that you couldn't move them around, the photos and things. The other thing about butterflies, that the Greek word for them, which I can never pronounce, Leptotropia, which means scaly wings. We don't actually see the scales, they're so fine, but these scales overlap on their wings and are very helpful because if they get stuck in a spider's web, they're able to get away, or if you touch them, it comes away like a fine dust, so it can be helpful. Just also, they have very unusual eyes, butterflies. We have one lens. They have thousands of lenses. Doesn't mean they see thousands of you, but what it means is it gives them the ability to see predators or humans or anyone coming from almost any angle. So they have great vision. And also, butterflies, they taste with their feet. I'm glad I don't taste with my feet after a day in the garden. But what the female does, she will scratch, usually with her front feet. They have 6 feet. With her front ones, she'll scratch the tree or the vine that she's going to lay her eggs on, because she has to have a host plant that will then feed her caterpillars. And so she scratches and she'll get the right chemical smell and know it's the right plant. But sometimes they've been tricked. Some females who, especially with the introduced olive trees, which have got that grey leaf, which is similar to a lot of our indigenous trees, she'll be flying along, she'll see an olive tree and think, oh yeah, I recognise that leaf, you know, the shape, the colour, and she won't bother to do her homework and do a little scratch, and she'll lay the eggs. And of course, when the caterpillars are born, they'll go, yuck, I don't like the taste of this, and so they'll either perish or they may be able to find a host tree. But the most that they will travel is about 5 metres, so it can be difficult. And that's one thing, butterflies have coped really well with climate change, but what they haven't coped well with is the loss of habitat, which is due to us, building suburbs, and the loss of their host plants. Their host plants are lost because we don't fence them in our garden, or we spray them because to us, there might be a weed. So these things are why we have seen the loss of butterflies. I mean, I think when we were growing up, we probably saw, quite a lot of butterflies, but now not so much. And they do need a good season, perhaps not like the one we're having at the moment, but they do need good rain, because with good rain, it means there's going to be growth of their host plants. And if there's plenty of host plants, then they will be able to lay their eggs, because if it's not a good season, they won't lay their eggs. And also weather conditions. They're a bit like teenagers, really. They don't sort of like to move around until it's about 25 degrees. So that's why they do like the sun. It was interesting, even yesterday there was that small window of sunshine for an hour or so, and I was sitting in my house and I just happened to look out the window and there was a yellow migrant. It's a small yellow butterfly, and they're very erratic, they're flying along, and I thought, oh, I'll go and get it for the garden club. I thought, I won't kill it, I'll just put it in a pot. I rushed out because there's native violets growing along the side of my house, and had gone there to eat or feed. And trying to catch a butterfly is not easy. It's almost impossible. That's why young birds learn from a very early age, don't bother chasing a butterfly for a meal. You're not going to catch it. They have 4 wings, 2 on each side, and they are able to hook together, and they're very efficient flyers. They also can use the bottom one if they have to dart away from a predator. They can use it, and move around. They can turn very quickly. So they're not easy to get. And also why they have, you'll see that some butterflies have brilliant colours, bright red and yellow and black and white together. And that's warning birds or other insects that I'm poisonous. Don't eat me because I'll kill you or I'll make you very sick. So bright colours, especially red, are a deterrent. So they use their colour as a deterrent. We only have 4 introduced species in Australia, and the latest one actually was found up near Darwin in 2012, the tawny costa. And then in the painted lady, which is all over the world, it was found in Perth in about 1951. And it's the most widespread. And the cabbage white, which we all know, because it will use about 150 different plants to feed on, lay its eggs on, and it's a nightmare, as we know, in our veggie garden. But it does love rapeseed. You see a brilliant yellow crop of crinola plants, and it loves that. That's its favourite one. And then the monarch, which is also well known, which is the orange and black butterfly. But it's been here since about 1870s. It's been here a long time. And it's no threat to native plants. There are a number of species that are common in our area. all the browns, the nymphs, that family, and then your lemon migrant that I talked about, and your tailored emperor. Now I do have, I'll pass this one around. Please don't shake it to see if it's alive, because it isn't. It's been dead about 4 months. And this poor, do you know, butterflies are the only thing that retain their beauty in death. I mean, if I sat on a plate like this did at home for 3 months, I wouldn't be looking this good. But I actually found it here in the hall, because this butterfly does not eat nectar. All other butterflies do. In fact, if you want to attract a tailed emperor, what you could do is mash up some rotten banana with a little bit of beer in a saucer, put it on top of a post in a sunny spot, and you probably have a good chance of one coming in to have a feed. I found it in the kitchen, probably went in there because it smelled stale beer or something. I don't think it even got to fly. I suspect that the wings didn't open properly. In fact, that's the most vulnerable time for a butterfly after it emerges from the chrysalis. But I might actually talk about that in sequence, which would be better. And the other one is the common crow butterfly and the wanderers. If we look at their cycle, they have 4 stages. You have the egg, and the female will find the host plant and lay her eggs. Sometimes she'll lay just 1 egg, depending on the breed of butterfly, or she'll lay lots of eggs, hundreds of eggs. There's one moth that actually, she will fly across the countryside and just distribute thousands of eggs. That's for her way of laying eggs. And so the eggs are usually only there for several days before they will hatch. And of course they need to hatch on the host plant, because as you know, if you've ever had caterpillars on a plant in your garden, they can be ferocious eaters, because it's during this stage, the caterpillar stage, they have to do all their eating, because the butterfly does not eat as an adult. It only has the proboscis that's it sucks the nectar, the liquid sugar out of flowers. And so the caterpillar will devour a whole plant. I had a lovely plant at home the other day and it looked great. The next day I went out and it was just a bundle of sticks. But when I looked closely, there was over a dozen of as thick as my little finger, lovely green caterpillars. But I was so angry with them, I just plucked them off and told them I didn't like them, and I threw them out in the yard. And I felt really bad later because I should have kept them and nurtured them, and I would have had butterflies. And so the caterpillars will then leave the host plant, because if they were to turn into the chrysalis or the pupae on the host plant, they would be too easily seen and be vulnerable. So they will crawl away, as I said, can be up to 5 metres. And it's the most miraculous thing, the metamorphosis of when the caterpillar will shed its skin, and then it has this coat underneath. It will attach itself to its head and have a silk tail as well. And at this stage it doesn't move. But the caterpillar completely breaks down. It becomes liquid, mush, and then it reforms into the butterfly. Now sometimes the chrysalis, it might hang there for months, in fact years, before it will actually hatch. And you can tell when it's going to hatch because you can see the butterfly quite clearly through the skin of the chrysalis. You know, it's pretty close to, it's going to hatch the next day. Once they hatch, they are at their most vulnerable because it takes several hours for the wings to dry out. And what happens is they pump a fluid into the wing veins, and that sort of has the set like cement, so that they're firm for flying, they don't flap around. And so that takes several hours. At the same time, their proboscis, which is a long thing in two pieces, that has to fuse together before they're able to use it. And when they're not using it, they curl it up sort of under their chin and they're flying around. So then when the butterfly comes out, and that's the stage that perhaps we recognise the most and certainly enjoy the most, you have the adult. Now some adults only live for a week, some will live up to 12 months. So in that week they have to mate, and they have to lay, the male and the female have to mate, and the female has to find the appropriate host plant to lay her eggs on. So she's a busy butterfly. Mating their tail to tail. Sometimes there's one male that has they have special chemicals that they release to attract each other. And is there one that, can you go on to the one where it shows the butterfly on its own? That looks a bit, can you move up to that one? Or that one, the one next door, yeah, that'd be great.
This one there?
No, the one next to the picture you're on, thank you. Now here we have a butterfly who, it's a local one. If you look at how tatty, and there's not a nice smooth edge to his wings, because he's a fighter, not a lover. And that's what the male butterflies spend most of their life doing, is courting females to mate or fighting other males so that they can have the females. There's even a term called hill-topping, when the males congregate on a hill and the females know they're there and they come up to choose a mate to have the future generations. And looking around the room, we have lovers and no fighters in this room. But you can, and of course, that shortens their lifespan too, this tattiness. Thanks, John. We might go on to the others. Just go on to the next one, be okay, the next picture. Yeah. That's your yellow migrant. Now there's a wonderful place if you get the chance to go out. I've got some cards I'll put out. It's called Butterfly Hill. It's just out of Nambour. Sadly this weather would not be helpful and they're probably closed, but they'll reopen about September. And he has all the local butterflies, and he has lots of plants, the host plants that butterflies like. For example, butterflies like pentas, and especially the red and the pink ones, they like those colours. So, and the thing is, you don't plant them, you need at least 3 host plants for a butterfly to be able to be sustained. But you don't plant them together, because the butterfly will assume it's just one plant, and that's not enough for her to lay her eggs and for the caterpillars to survive. But if you had 3 plants, plant them well apart in your garden, or even encourage your neighbours to plant some, so the butterfly will have plenty of host plants. And the advantage a butterfly has, it's a bit like a drone. It can travel over a suburb and look down and see where there are host plants, whereas a kangaroo can't sort of be hopping from garden to garden. You want to move on? So this one was out at Butterfly Hill, and it was on a cloudy day, and all the butterflies were on the gauze, sort of looking, trying to see the little bit of light that was coming in. What's the next one? Yeah, just move on to the next one, please. And there you see also is lantana, well, we don't like it, and oleanders. They're great host plants for butterflies. And just move on to the next one. Yeah, you can skip the next guy because we've seen him. yes, these were out at, I went out to Butterfly Hill. And some of them will have big, look like eyes on the back of their wings, and that's to frighten or make the predators think that, you know, that's, oh, look at those big eyes, it must be a big dangerous animal, insect. Beetles make up the biggest insect group, and then butterflies and moths are the second largest in the world. You just keep moving on. There you have the red, which would warn any predators that, you know, I won't taste good if you try and eat me. Oh, here we are. So provide habitat and food for all 4 stages of butterfly life. A place to lay their eggs, a species-specific food and habitat for the larvae stage or the caterpillars, a safe environment for the chrysalis, and nectar for the adult. Now these were some of the signs. The university actually has got quite a lot of host plants, and if you've want to go to the art gallery and then wander around down near the lake system, you've got a good chance of seeing butterflies. If you just want to move, this shows the different butterflies. Oh, and you see there's our Banksia spinulosa, so that is important to the lemon migrant butterfly, which most of us have got growing. There you've got your passion vine and the sandpaper fig. The common crow is very common, as the one that I just passed round there, you have it, slightly different colouring. The snowwood, the tulip wood, but I'm sure if you were to go to Manawis, they'd be able to advise you about host plants for local butterflies as well. Thanks, John. I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of the local butterflies that you'll get in this region. Of course, we don't have as many butterflies as Africa, and of course the Amazon has about 800,000 varieties of butterfly, whereas we only have about 400 different species. Most butterflies do live in the zone, or 75% of the world's butterflies live within the equatorial zone, that part of the world, because a lot of them actually, the vines, the flowering vines is what they use for their host plant. So these are all butterflies that you may see here on the coast. But it's up to us to, to grow the host plants. Oh, he sells that product, but you can get that at Manawi as well. Yeah, thanks, John. Right. That was a bit hodgepodge. This is one of the plants, Helotropia. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of putting it out in the rain, but that was all little tiny white flowers. It does like it, although it does prefer colours. And the beauty of that, like Pentas also for butterflies, there's lots of flowers in the one spot that they can get nectar from. They can go to lots of plants just for one flower. Well, thank you everyone. I'm sorry that was a bit disjointed.